was a big failure from my side because I really wanted to do it. Even big question, right? Like, what are you gonna do going to IIT? It was really hard sometimes being the only woman. And I see that I am the only woman in a class of 99. I was the one woman at Apple. I was the one woman manager. In one of the courses, I couldn't understand is my professor's accent. He was a Texan and he had a deep southern accent. We would have this robot which is like 3,000 pounds, 6 feet taller than me. So we took it to Antarctica and we stayed there for 2 months, camped the house on the foot of the lake. It took me a while to find my way again after that. And then I moved to Waymo, and at Waymo I felt I really hit my groove. Priceless thing was my son was like, I rode in the first ever autonomous cars in the world and my mom made it. So that is kind of what makes me proud, right?
Welcome to Smore Science, Shilpa. We go way back, but I want you to introduce yourself. How do you introduce yourself today?
Yeah, so first, Sarita, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to talk to you. We have known each other over 20 years, and I
Yeah.
really admire what you have done with the Smore magazine. Speaking of myself, how do I introduce myself? I'm a roboticist. I have a passion. I have always wanted to build robot brains. So, career-wise, I'm a roboticist. And personal life, I think being a mom, I really identify with being a mom. It's been one of the most rewarding and satisfying and fun parts of my life. And otherwise, generally, I just aspire to be a kind human being who tries to change the world a little bit for the better every day with the actions I take.
Amazing. So you do that in your role as a director of engineering at a company called Waymo. Can you tell me a little bit about the company and what do you do there?
Yes. Waymo, it is a spin-off of Google car program from very long ago. Waymo is a company that makes autonomously driven cars. Right now, Waymo has a service running in San Francisco and Phoenix and LA. And the whole premise of autonomous cars is that they are safer than human drivers because they don't get distracted. It's very exciting work. It's very challenging as well. And of course, we will get into it.
Yes, sounds good. So autonomous means self-driving. So you don't need to sit behind the wheel to get from one place to the other. The car will take you. And you are absolutely right. The need for this for people who are not able to drive is huge. So this is indeed a very important piece of work, and I'm sure that motivates you every day to come into work and give it your all. I'm so excited to hear more about your work and the impact that your work you see having on the in the future. But before we get into all that, I want to take us back to India where we actually met. So Shilpa and I are graduates of the Indian Institute of Technology, and we actually shared the same hostel or dormitory as they call here. But I think that's where the similarity ends because I went to that institute for my master's, and it does have an entrance exam, and it was reasonably competitive, but it was not the exam that close to 1 million students in India write that. It's called the Joint Entrance Examination. And turns out it is one of the toughest entrance exams in India, and I think arguably the world. And every year I heard that 1 million students write it. I might have to go and fact check that. But the acceptance rate is 1%. Okay, so I just want to set up that this is what Shilpa wrote and passed the exam and entered into her engineering program. Can you tell me a little bit about, you deciding that, okay, I'm going to attempt this arguably challenging task of going into this institute? Take me back to those days.
That's a very interesting question, Sarita. So, when I was a teen, like around 13 or 14, my brother went to the Indian Institute of Technology and he brought me some of Isaac Asimov's books. So, for those of you who don't know, Isaac Asimov has written a huge range of science fiction books. Some of them were about robotics. And I got into it. And, I was naturally inclined towards science and math. I really liked doing that. It was fun. But I was not seeing where to go from there. There was like really no role models that I could see. And one of Isaac Asimov's books had a woman scientist who was leading a robotics lab. And I'm 14, I'm looking for something. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to be.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that.
So now the question is, how do you do that? What do you need to learn? And of course, you need engineering, right? At that time, there was not really much robotics at that time. It was like, how long ago, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, well, then I thought I should do engineering. And what is the best place to do engineering? Well, it is the IITs, right? So then I set my mind to it. It was really, of course, as Sarita said, it is highly competitive. It took 2 years of doing nothing really, but just focusing on learning the physics and math and chemistry to crack
So
that exam.
did you, I've heard like there were children who would spend 10 to 12 hours just put their head down in the textbooks. Were you one of those?
I was.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes,
Yes,
students.
and I will tell you, just at the fear of revealing my geekiness, I used to look forward to Saturdays because it was a half school day, and I used to look forward to coming home and spending
Wow.
hours learning trigonometry and vector algebra.
So, and then you wrote the exam
And
and
then,
you
yes,
what was that experience like? Did you ever doubt? Like, did you know that there are not enough girls preparing for these exams? And did you realize at that time that you were one of the very few attempting this?
yeah. So actually, that time I didn't think much about it. Really, I gave the exam, and in fact, I'll say the first time I didn't make it in the
Okay.
first year I gave.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a failure. It was a big failure from my side because I really wanted to do it. So I decided to spend one more year working on it. Few days I was like really, I was crying, I was down, and then I was like, heck, I gotta do this, right? It doesn't matter if I failed once, I learn more. And I did. And then the next time I made it, till then I never thought much about how many women are giving or not. My father was supportive, my brother was
Okay.
supportive, good environment, right?
So you
But the
had a
real
very
challenge came.
strong
Sorry.
social, you had a strong family backing where
Yes,
they
yes,
inspired you, they encouraged you.
yes, absolutely. I wouldn't have, otherwise, I wouldn't have believed in myself because people did question, right? Like, what are you going to do going to IIT? You're going to be away from your family. What's the point? What will you do? And I didn't have good answers. I was young, right? But
Yeah.
my dad was like, no, she's going to go. She wants to do it. She can do it.
Yay, that's amazing. I think that's so important, even as parents who are raising young daughters. They play such an important role in just basic conversations that you have in the household that really helps young girls have that confidence. Because sometimes we ourselves don't know what we are capable of, right? There's just so much that your parents, your relatives, your friends, your peers, they influence your own thought processes. So this is really encouraging to hear that. So then what happened once you found yourself inside the institute? How was that
Yes.
experience for you?
Yeah, I can tell you a story about my first day. So my
Yes.
dad took me to Bombay, right, to get me set up in the institute, and he walked me to the orientation of the class. It was like a informal get together, and he walks me to a room, and I see that I am the only woman in a class of 99.
99.
So I was the one woman.
Wow.
I took mechanical engineering, right? It was like even more discouraged for women
Yes.
to take it just because, the career was supposed to be really hard. And my dad asked me, are you sure you want to do this? I never lacked confidence in what I want to do. And I was like, yes, I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was sure I wanted to do that. And then that's where the journey began. It was great. It was really hard sometimes being the only woman. And I would say my experience was very different from many of the men in my class just because I was a
Oh,
minority.
okay.
Uh,
In what
but I
way?
did learn a lot. Sorry, go
In
ahead.
what way was it was it different for you?
Yeah. Um, so I think the biggest way I would say was it was much harder in the sense that whenever there was an assignment or a homework, right, the boys had each other to count on. They could work together in their dorm for like long hours. They had many people from the previous batches, right, who were, let's say, 1 year senior to them, who could tell them what to do. And I had very few people to ask. Maybe I had two women who were senior to me, and some things I didn't know. One example I still remember, in my first year, we were asked to manufacture a gearbox. And I had no idea how to make a gearbox, like what components to get, how to assemble it. So I got some clues from some of my friends in class. I bought the material, but for the life of me, I couldn't get the gears to mesh together. They would slip on the shaft. And I spent the entire night, I was up the whole night assembling the gearbox. It barely worked, but it worked, right? It
But
got
it
me a
worked.
passing grade.
And you did it all by yourself.
All by myself, and it was very challenging. It was very challenging, but it had to be done. Like
Yeah.
you have a class, you gotta nail it. So like that, there were many experiences like that just for the sheer learning, it was really harder than it should have been if I had company.
So it's not just for lack of confidence. It's that lack of community, that lack of friendships and networking that many young women feel that they're not benefiting because they don't see more people around them who look like them.
Yes, oh, absolutely, Sarita. I think that is the thing because, as you said, community matters, representation matters, right? And the journey is that much harder if you are alone. There are many, I would say, these are unnecessary obstacles, right?
Yes,
And that is why I
you
think
said it.
representation and STEM, women in STEM, right from the beginning, it's very important. It just sets the stage for future.
How has that IIT experience benefited you now that you look back, even though it was hard as hell?
Yeah. I think it was worth it for me personally because obviously the education there was A plus, right? So I did learn a lot. I learned a lot to be self-reliant, which is a skill that goes a very long way in life. It was simple, right? If there is a problem, I have to solve it, right? And if I have to solve it, then my brain is going to produce a solution. The education was really excellent. The network of friends I found there, they stood, even though there were very few women, as you know, in our dorm. In my batch, they were just 20 women, but we were there for each other and we are still there for each other. We still are there cheering each other's achievements,
Yeah,
experiences.
forged it through hard times. So you went for a PhD program and you came to the United States for that. What was your thought behind that decision, and what was challenging for you to take that decision? Like, you are leaving everything that you know back home, your family, your friends, that familiar culture, and you're making the leap to come here. And it was the moment when we came to the United States. This was the internet was not the way it was. Like we had no access to information the way kids nowadays have, right? So it was literally the great unknown for us, and we had no idea. We had a few connections at the universities. You have your student associations that would help you settle in. But other than that, it was truly a leap of faith, faith in yourself and faith in your dreams that this is what I want to do. I'm going to go and do it. So tell me about that decision and what did you face during those years that you were initial years where you were studying in America?
Yes. So so when I was in IIT, right, I did my master's in robotics. So I did build a large pick and place robot, right? Because I was pursuing robotics somewhat single-mindedly, if I might say. And that time I realized I knew the mechanical aspects of it, but I wanted to learn more of the software and the brain part of it, right? It is not about moving, it is about the reasoning in the brain. And for some reason I thought if I'd pursued a PhD in a good university in US in robotics, then I will learn more, right? So then I went through the standard process people do in IIT. I applied to a bunch of colleges. I got accepted to a few. I chose one that I thought had a good robotics program. And as you said, Sarita, there was a student association, got some help from that,
Yeah.
and showed up. And Austin is very different from what they show in the movies. It's a very unique and weird city, and it's great, honestly, but it is not what I had expected.
We see New York. For us, all of America is New York.
New York, right? So I arrived in Austin. I had figured out a couple of roommates before to stay with, and I arrived with 2 suitcases. Landed there. I didn't have some basic life skills like being able to cook my own food, so I had to figure that out. And I think a lot. Definitely, there is a big culture change, right? Just figuring
Mm,
out how to navigate a new country, not knowing how to drive a car. Uh,
yeah.
it is not easy to get around without a car. Driving a car, I did actually for the first time. I struggled with a couple of courses, and in one of the courses, I couldn't understand my professor's accent because
Oh,
he was a Texan and he had a deep Southern accent, and I struggled with it. It takes time, it takes time to learn a new accent and to process it. So my first year was a bit of a struggle, just like kind of basic things, how to get groceries, how to cook, how to understand courses. What I did enjoy here though was that while I missed my family and friends, what I did enjoy was the freedom I had from the you grow up in a certain culture. The culture has certain expectations on how you should behave, what is the norm. When we go to a new place, that does not exist. It makes you think fresh, right? It makes you question some of the assumptions that you had internalized. So with that, I think it helped me grow, right? And in fact, universities have students from all over the world.
yeah.
So then kind of learning with them, it helped me grow a lot. So I think first 3 years, I'll say it was more really just trying to figure things out, and then I did find my groove and it got really fun. And I'll come to the fun part. I did some good fun internships and I'll tell you about them in a bit. And then I think I really enjoyed, I really fit in. It was really, I feel I got the momentum for my career after that, after the particular PhD advisor
Initial.
and after the internship. uh, I could do what I wanted to do.
So let's go back to your internship. You said you had some interesting experiences during your internship. Please tell us about them.
Yes, it's I think one of the most my proudest and most fun work I've done.
Good.
So during my PhD, I started in mechanical engineering, and then I switched to a PhD advisor who is in computer science. Same reason he knew, his lab knew something I didn't know, and I wanted to learn that. Now, when I switched, he said, "Hey, I don't have guaranteed funding to support your research work. So you have to figure out something once in a while." And by chance, I came across this email from a person called Bill Stone. He is a world famous caver and he was running a company called Stone Aerospace, a very small company. And he said, "I'm looking for star programmers. I'm working on this underwater robot. It is a NASA funded project. And if you do well, you get to go to Antarctica." And I was not a star programmer. I had taught myself programming. I'm a mechanical engineer. But
Yeah.
I replied, I said, yes, I can do it. He met me, he talked to me. I was like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry. And so then I started working on that underwater robot. He had a ranch on the outskirts of Austin. I would go there. There was one more programmer, and we had some software that he didn't know how to even like set up. So he said, go figure out. I spent long hours. I stayed there till midnight or 1. I figured it out. And then we started testing the robot. And the ultimate test was in Antarctica. And the reason is this: NASA is still actually it is looking for life on other planets and satellites. And Europa, that is Jupiter's moon, it has been shown to be covered with ice. And perhaps there is water under it. So NASA wants to send a probe there. Now, the closest analog to that environment on Earth is Antarctic dry valleys. They are like perennially frozen lakes there. So we would have this robot which is like 3,000 pounds, 6 feet taller than me. We took it to Antarctica and we stayed there for 2 months camping out on a frozen lake. And we put the robot inside the lake, drove it around, measured all sorts of biochemical properties of the water, and just camped there for 2 months. And that The whole experience, I worked there for 2 years. The whole experience was really incredible because A, I got to work on a real robotic system that had to have results. B, I had again same thing, right? B, I had to rely on myself many ways to learn things I didn't because people were counting on me. Going to Antarctica, I was exposed to, in the McMurdo station at the US, right? I was exposed to people from all walks of life. There were people who were rescue pilots, there were people who were cooks. Some came there just to be in Antarctica. There were people who were doing wildlife photography, diving in the ocean and taking pictures. Very incredible experience for me, and I grew as a lot. I got a lot of confidence in myself. And so I did it twice. I came out really feeling that this is what I wanted to do. And I would do it again if I could.
This
Yeah.
story is amazing because there are two moments that stand out to me. A is you said you came across this email and you replied to it, which I feel that is you looking for opportunity. And this sounds like completely way out of your comfort zone. You have no idea what the work is, but you grabbed it and then you were, I will figure it out, but
Yeah.
I want it. So I think that is a very important thing to point out here is you don't know where your next opportunity is going to come from. So always you have to keep your eyes and ears open. But the second thing is recognizing that that opportunity is there is one thing, but having the confidence to put your hat in the ring is another thing. So you went and met this person, and with no knowledge of, or at least limited knowledge of programming, you said, I got this. How do you think that, where that confidence comes?
So first thing I'll say is that no matter how confident a person looks from outside, right? Nobody has figured it out. And to have the confidence that you will figure it out, there is always, I think it is important to take tasks that stretch you, right? Take things, be okay with failure. Like sometimes we are all going to fail, and it's okay. And I find that confidence building is taking a new task and then taking a small step towards it, and a small step. And every small step gives you some feedback, right? If you succeed, you're like, yes, I figured it out. If you fail, then you're like, okay, I didn't do this right. I'll try again.
Love this. So you have worked for some of the big tech giants out there. How has that experience been for you coming from academia to general industry?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, again, I think I would say it was as much as a big leap as coming from India to the US.
Mm,
Academia and especially Silicon Valley world, right?
yeah,
They are very different. Silicon
yeah.
Valley, it's about making a product, right? Making a successful product, about making a business that is able to earn profits, let's say. And it is very competitive because it has people from all over the world, really. Some of the very, very talented and focused people who have done engineering all their life. And so you get immersed in this environment. My experience at Apple, again, like I touched the theme of success and failure, right? Both played out for me there. At Apple, I had like a great manager, like really huge thanks to him. He saw my potential and he made me a manager. I had never managed teams before with 3 years work experience. And I grew. I managed a team, I grew it. Then I had managers reporting to me. And I was really successful in some things. I was successful in tech, I was successful in results. The area that I learned there is because of my hyper focus on certain set of skills. I had not broadened my horizons in many ways, and I didn't understand how to build great and lasting relationships with people, what motivates people, right? And so that ultimately limited my success because after a point, it is not about you, it is about how many people want to work with you and how you can take all of them to the next level of success. So that was like I wished for more success there, but I didn't. It took me a while to find my way again after that. But I did. I spent the time learning about all of those things, soft skills, which they call, but
Yeah.
they become as important as the STEM skills. And then over time, I moved to Neuro, which was a startup. And then I moved to Waymo. And at Waymo, I felt I really hit my groove because I had acquired the skills, like the 360 skills that I needed. Of course, it never ends, right? Now I see more that I don't have. But that's where I've kind of uh, found, I will say, I found my balance, how to balance, and I found how to exercise all the skills to be successful and to make the company successful, always through the career.
Did you have any mentors throughout your career journey?
So that's interesting. I didn't look for mentors as such. What I do, I learn from anybody. And especially for people who are different from me, there, as an example, I had a boss long ago. He was like just the um, what's the polite word? He was really like rude and self-centered, and he would be humiliating to people in meetings. That said, I disassociated the person from the statements he was making. And I said, does his statement have value? I forget the person, whether I like the person or not, whether I agree with them or not, whether they are being emotional or not. Let me see what they are saying. And that way, I can learn from almost anyone. And everybody becomes my mentor, whether I like them or not. I just observe how they are doing. Are they being successful? And can I learn from them? So most of the career, I didn't really have mentors. I followed the self-directed learning. Somebody I saw were operating at 2 levels above me, I would become their student, just learn. Then recently, yes, I took out mentors because I know I have gaps where I want to grow. And I just go and ask for, I think the best way to learn sometimes is you go and ask people for feedback. And you say, hey, I'm looking to grow in this area. Can you provide me some feedback? And you have to choose the right person who can give you the feedback. So that's another way I have pursued. On the flip side, I am trying to be the sounding board and mentor for many women now in my company. So that's also quite rewarding. That's another way to learn. If you can find someone to mentor you, that's just great.
So, having worked in the Silicon Valley uh, and seeing what you have seen today, what things would you have done differently?
So what I think is also, like we were talking about, we talked about history and stuff, right? In many ways, as women, we are taught to be good, good wife, good student, good employee, be perfect. Like we
Yeah.
internalize this. And what that does is, if you are trying to be good at everything, then everybody has limited energy. If you're trying to be good at everything, you're going to be here. If you try to be good at a few things, you will get there. And of course, I have done it, trying to be an A student, trying to get good grades in everything, trying to maintain, nice, clean house. And some of these, now I think, if I didn't do that, what else could I have done with my time? And of course, I could have done a lot more if I had just let, just it's okay. If you don't like something, get a C. It's okay, as long as you're learning. No, it takes growth. It takes time to change the message that the world taught us. Take the time to do what we want for ourselves. So I would have done differently. Like I'll say what my 10-year told me is, hey, why are you trying to do this perfectly? No one cares except you to some task. And then I would have been even more strategic about where I want to be and where my limited time and energies should go. And I think that's an advice I would give to everyone, is to look at everything you do and see how much does it really matter, right? And then let it go. It's okay. Imperfection is okay.
So that takes a lot of unlearning, I would say,
Yes.
because we have been raised to sort of make sure everybody is happy and make sure we give it our all. It's just something that we have learned over the years. So you're right, that does require a lot of trying to be aware of and be very honest that okay, I'm not going to focus on. It's okay to have a messy house once in a while. It's okay. I'll be fine.
For everybody to be happy with you, it's okay. So I would say that anything worthwhile in life, right, including a career like this, it is a long game.
Yeah.
Have the long game, keep the vision alive of what you want to be. And then there may be many detours, failures, frustrations. It's like, if you look at the curve, it is never ever up. It's like gonna be down, then up, then down. And when there is a down, it is really hard when there is a failure. but always recall that vision, and then just steady small steps, keep going.
What are you most excited about the future of Waymo, of your role? Where you think your impact is?
So, Waymo, I'll start with a story. In 2019, we started doing our first rider only drives in Phoenix. First time we could have like a large area where the car drove without a rider. And I went there, one of the, Waymo knots, we were going there. So I went there to take a ride. I took my 6-year-old boy. I got in the car. There's no driver. Even though I have, of course, I wrote the software for it, and I have 100% confidence in the safety. How we validate the system. It was couple of moments of, oh shit, there is no driver.
I'm taking my son into something that I have helped
Yes.
build. That's a different level of confidence. I have to say
Yes.
that.
Yes. And I did have that confidence, and we drove for 2 hours all around Phoenix. And priceless thing was my son was like, I rode in the first ever autonomous cars in the world, and my mom made it.
Oh,
So that is kind of the what makes me proud. And I have so in the past I led the behavior prediction team, which is responsible for predicting what others do in the world. If some car is going to cut in, is there a pedestrian crossing? And that was the work manifested, and that was the beginning. After that, now Waymo has a commercial service in San Francisco and Phoenix, and going strong in LA. So you can get a Waymo from an app and just go around town. And this is just the beginning. I think if you look back, this industry, we started with a dream of building autonomous cars. And as I said, like we had the bare minimum of pieces really, but then we worked together as a team, and we saw challenge after challenge, but we always conquered the challenges that came by working together and by keeping the end goal in mind. And this industry is really just getting started. There are many challenges that still remain, and there are many challenges to win to really kind of have the public trust that an autonomous cars can be safe. And of course they can be, but trust is a different matter. It doesn't
yeah,
come just with numbers, right? It comes with time, it comes with
yeah.
experience. So I think that is the big challenge for the industry. There are of course technical challenges. We always want to keep getting better, but I do think that this is something, it is incredible what humans have managed to do. We have managed to make an intelligence that can navigate complex roads in many complex cities in the world. I mean, if you go to San Francisco, you know how it is. And this is incredible. I have had really enjoyed this ride, and I think we will do, a lot more will happen in the future and at an accelerated pace. So I'm really excited to be in the industry to, make my contributions there.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Shilpa, this has been so much fun. I've not had this sort of a conversation with you, so I have learned so much as part of this about your whole experience and your journey. I wish you the very best. I will continue to watch as you succeed over the years, and I thank you for agreeing to come on and share your story with us on Small.
Thank you for having me, Sarita, and pleasure talking to you after so many years.
Bye.
Bye.